So you brought this up about snow shoveling
Hmm.
and how that can come with a heart warning.
For sure it is. I mean, in general, muscle doesn't work as well when it's cold. So another general tip would be if you out exercise outside or even inside, if you're moving between temperature zones, like if you're driving to the gym but your car's cold, you might be a little more stiff and cold, that you give yourself a proper warm up. But yes, I think it's probably been about 30 years now. We started seeing research on cardiac episodes with with the weather, and then it took some time to piece together that it was snow shoveling, specifically, so that, created more research, and you can go into this a little bit more, but the tricky thing, we'll just talk about cold and cardiovascular system in general, is when you go into cold weather, your blood vessels will constrict to move the blood away from the periphery and more towards the core of your body. I don't mean the core muscles, but just deep.
Your
Yeah,
central,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, like this, like the main axis of your body where things are warmer. And so you get this constriction. When you start cardiovascular exercise, your heart muscle needs to be infused with blood. So when you do both at the same time, when you're in really cold temperatures and you start with really heart moving activity, your body has too many tasks to do. It has to make a choice. Do I move blood to my heart, or am I sort of pulling it more centrally to keep it warm? And it can leave you in a place where um, your circulation isn't, what's the best word for it? Steady?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's a good word.
steady, I think, is a good word. Um, and then further, so that's always at play. And so the general recommendations for doing cardiovascular exercise, we'll leave snow shoveling aside for a second, is that you do extended warm-ups, that the phase over which you warm up is longer than it would normally be, and that you keep your intensity down
Right.
so that your body is sort of sorting out what it needs to do. You don't hit it with 2 tasks and end up failing at one of them, which is getting enough blood to your heart. The thing with snow shoveling was first looked at when they took, I would say, healthy but untrained men into a parking lot of a hospital and had them shovel while wearing heart rate monitors so they could see what their heart rates were getting up to, and it was getting up to, like 155, 175, like, not that different than the heart rates that you find in cardiovascular stress treadmill stress tests. So they're like, "Wow, this is."
Pretty intense.
Yes, there's a lot of exertion. And then when they were measuring blood pressure too, they found that blood pressure was going almost a bit higher.
When you constrict your extremities, the vessels in your extremities, you're automatically going to increase the pressure in the central part of your body, and that's not necessarily something that would happen when you're running in moderate temperature because you haven't got that added stress of the
Or
vasoconstriction.
even shoveling, like, we could just keep the mode the same. Like, if you're
Just
shoveling when the weather's fine, you're not gonna also be shoveling against the resistance of your own
right.
cardiovascular system trying to keep you warm. But
Yes.
it's not only the vasoconstriction. So this has taken, I would say, maybe 10 years of breaking it down. Is one is you are doing a fairly, like, shoveling is a fairly, still activity, so it falls in the category
Yes.
of big body work. So you're not using all of your pumps to help circulate. It and further, it's a lot of isometric work, which means you tend to create a Valsalva holding your breath, and so you end up that further increases pressure, cardiovascular pressure.
Right.
So it's also related to the mode itself, not just the fact that it's exercise. Like, these aren't necessarily things you would find in going for a run in cold.
Yeah. Okay.
So
That's
so
interesting.
there's a few mechanical things about lifting lifting a heavy weight. And I do want to say that the people why they tested this initially and they were using healthy subjects, there were natural experiments of people just having heart attacks doing this, and it tends to be people who already have cardiovascular issues, um, who aren't who are sedentary, who aren't regular exercisers. So the big contrast between having really no conditioning and then stepping right into a maximal physical activity is so abrupt. You know, your body a big part of the benefit of regular exercise is that your blood vessels are going, "Oh, this is how we get strong to." We've talked about this before, you know, they're flexible, they're used to responding, opening, closing, dealing with pressure changes, but if they never really have to do that and then all of a sudden you give them a cardiac stress test level set of, loads, it fails.
Right.
So there are recommendations um, that I think it's American Heart Association or the American Medical Association have around, one, if you're at great cardiovascular risk, get someone else to do the shoveling for you. But then, of course, there's times where that's not possible. So then the recommendations are start gradually, take lots of breaks. Um, the cold breathing in the cold air is a part of bringing that temperature down, that vasoconstriction, so warming the breath, putting a scarf over your face or a mask or something that warms the air as it's coming in, and then also, I thought this was really interesting, pushing the snow, sw scraping or sweeping the snow versus lifting it. So the loads are lower and you're not creating those Valsalva high pressure
Mm.
movements.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of snow here, being we're coastal and wet, but what we have to do a lot is grit the roads. So, and it's a very similar action because you have to go to the salt canister and maybe a little bit more
walking,
a bit more walking, but because you got to go up and down the hill and put it down. But I wondered if it was the most similar thing. Snow shoveling is very rare where I am.
And then snow blowing, of course, it's like now. Have you seen? There's now you know what a Roomba is? Those like robots that vacuum the floor for you.
Oh, right.
Those aren't taking over Scotland. Anyway,
No.
they have Roomba snow blowers.
Oh, wow.
They have automatic lawn mowers, so you just
Yes.
your your snow blowing robot. But anyway, for those who are going, well, I will pick up a snowblower instead. Just know that that can still actually fall. It's not as intense as the repetitive lifting, but it still is isometric holding. So you still want to proceed with the same guidelines that we're talking about, starting gradually, taking breaks, and the heart rate is a little bit less, like more in the 120, but it's a workout.
Yeah,
You're
for sure.
doing a workout. And so starting first thing in the morning, maybe instead of, getting out of your chair after the last 2 months or whatever, and gonna go do this big thing, be like, "You know what? I have to do this today. I'm going to take a walk first."
Yeah, just warm things up.
Warm things up and think about distributing the blood. So it's not about muscle in this case, about the elasticity or the stretchiness of something. It's about the perfusion of blood.
Now, this I think is slightly less than with cold water, which we'll be talking about in a minute. But blood also tends to, in the cold, get more viscous.
Yeah, right.
And that can be due to both, if you're hypothermic, that actually the temperature of the blood, especially in the extremities, can drop. Not centrally, your body is pretty good at maintaining that core temperature. But the other thing that happens, and this is more the case when you're in water, but you actually, with the vasoconstriction, because you get more central blood, your actually kidneys are signaled to produce more, get rid of that excess fluid. So actually your blood becomes essentially more concentrated.
Yeah, and so for people mechanically thinking about blood going through your um, arteries and veins, that water is less viscous than honey, more viscous. So what we're saying is cold weather can turn your blood into something that's flowing more like honey, sticky. There's resistance now within the blood itself to flowing.
Mhm. And the risk is clotting,
Yeah.
obviously, for
Yeah.
that. Great. Well, thanks for all those tips.